Today, I have an amazing guest, my friend, Kyle Campbell, who comes originally from United States. He's half American, half Scottish, and he was actually born in the Netherlands. And now he's an entrepreneur who helps people with sales and communication. Kyle, so happy to see you. My first question is about your move to the Netherlands. Was there a moment in your life, at that period in your life when you decided to move to the Netherlands? What was the reason, and how did it go?
Yeah, like you said, I'm from the U.S. I grew up and lived in Key West, Florida, which is an island. It's the southernmost point of the United States. Beautiful, beautiful tropical part of the U.S., very close to Cuba. And as you mentioned, I was born in the Netherlands and in The Hague. And my parents were big travelers. They traveled all over the world, met while backpacking in Indonesia. And they had my brother in England, where they were living, and then came here to the Netherlands and had me here in The Hague. And growing up, I always had this interest in getting to know the country where I was born. After I was born, I only lived in the Netherlands 6 months. So I didn't remember anything. I didn't learn Dutch. But growing up, I had heard stories about it and had this interest in getting to know the country where I was born. And so when I was in high school, I did an exchange year. I came and lived with a Dutch family in Drenthe, the most rural, small town part of the Netherlands, in a tiny, tiny town, and loved it. And moved back to the US, went to university, started working. And again, I felt this calling to come back to the Netherlands. I was working, started my career, and a lot of changes were going on in my life. I'd just gotten out of a relationship. There was the pandemic in 2020. And actually, just before the pandemic started, I had come here to the Netherlands with one of my best friends. He's from Ecuador. And he and I met while we were both studying abroad here during our exchange year. And on that trip, I had this thought, I had this question like, would I want to live in the Netherlands again? Could this be my home? And once I came, I thought, oh yeah, I have to move here. I have to come live in Amsterdam and in the Netherlands again. And that sort of kicked off this journey, this quite a long process of figuring out how to make my way back here, how to find work, find a job, all the sort of logistics of moving countries, moving continents. But I was very driven, very knew for sure I wanted to be here again. And all the while during a pandemic, which didn't make it any easier, but luckily managed to figure it out.
I think during the pandemic was more difficult.
Yes.
It's definitely more, it's already challenging to move to relocate, to integrate. The adaptation process always takes time. But during the pandemic, how was it for you?
It was so strange. I spent a big part of the pandemic back home in Key West on this very, very beautiful place and lockdown. And it was very, Florida was a strange place at the time. There actually weren't very many rules about COVID. It was one of the states where they said, oh, keep things open.
We don't believe in the pandemic.
They didn't want to put too many rules on the state.
Yeah.
But again, moving countries was also very difficult. Like when I came to the Netherlands, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And that was a big challenge to figure out how am I going to do that. I luckily have the family who I used to live with during my exchange year. We're still very close. And they offered to put me up and to host me for 2 weeks. But again, that was very scary. I was coming from the US, had just done this big trip from abroad, and was lucky to have people who were willing and welcomed me into their home to help make the move possible. So I wouldn't have been able to do it without their help.
I didn't know the fact that you were born in the Netherlands. and that you had some history of coming here for the exchange year. But I'm sure before deciding to actually move here, you had some stereotypes about the Netherlands, as most of the people had. I had a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were false. Most of them were actual stereotypes. So my question is, did you have any, and which were actually true, and you have actually witnessed it, and which were totally false and just pure lies?
Yeah. I had always heard that the Dutch are very scheduled. They are very disciplined in their timing. Their calendars are booked months ahead, 3 months out. You can't even get a slot for a coffee with someone. And that's so different than the way things are where I grew up, right? I grew up in Florida on an island. It's very casual. You just call up a friend and say, hey, what are you doing right now? I'm outside your house, right? I'm here. Let's hang out.
Same here in my country.
And I think that's really hard. That's a tough thing to adjust to. And it's not true all the time. I have some Dutch friends who are a little more like spontaneous, but on the whole, I would say it is pretty true. I think people are very well stick to their schedule. They have their calendar, and I find I've also adopted some of that as well, which kind of surprises me. I'm even like in my calendar a lot more than I would have been back home in Florida.
Okay, and any other stereotypes that were actually not, you thought to see something or to experience something and it was not true?
Yeah. A stereotype I'd also heard was about coldness, about the Dutch being cold. And that's something that's been like totally disproven to me. I think the way of expressing yourself, it may be different and it may come across in different ways. And you may need to, it may not be quite as obvious or with these big gestures or a huge hug, or it may come across in a different way. But I have many Dutch friends and like my Dutch host family that I just spoke about. I would say they're anything but cold, right? They're very loving. People who have taken me on as like an extra son to their family, who are very willing and open to sharing their country with me and teaching me and making me feel more at home here, especially when I'm so far from where I grew up. So I think that's a stereotype that's continues to be sort of disproven as I get to know more people here and spend more time here. And I think it's just people express themselves in different ways. And I think that's something you just need to maybe learn or be aware of and maybe look a bit deeper than some of the big expressions you might sometimes look for, depending on where you're from.
Yeah, I totally agree. Since we have an honest conversation, and even though you have planned to move to the Netherlands, you have experienced it before, still, from my experience and from the experience of so many people I know, adaptation, integration in the new country is always hard. So can you recall like your lowest, hardest moments, and what helped you go through them?
When I first moved here, it was during the pandemic. It was during the lockdown, and I was living up in the north in Groningen, close to where I used to live during my exchange year. And I was living on my own. I found my own apartment and was living in a completely different place, and knew some people from when I lived here in high school during my exchange year. But it was a very, very, very difficult time because you couldn't see as many people. There were a lot of like restrictions about going out and how many people could be together at once, which, having just moved to a new country, was not what I had expected. I had also moved during a pandemic, so I think I was just determined to get here, but that didn't make it easier once I got here. I think I did expect to meet more people and to make more friends right away. But the first 6 months, I spent a lot of time alone. Spent a lot of time in my apartment, sort of working remote, and that was really tough. That was like, I had a lot of questions and doubt of like, did I make the right choice to move here? I could be home on this beautiful island where I know lots of people. My friends are there. It's warm. No rules, right? So different than being in the Netherlands. So I think that was one of the lowest moments, like as soon as I got here.
And from then on, it went easier and easier, or no, like really, honestly, I go through ups and downs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
At least first 3 years when we just moved to the Netherlands, I was thinking of going back home every single day. Did anything like that happen to you? Or in these 6 months you were like, boom, I'm done. I feel great here. I'm adapted. I'm integrated. I love everything about this new country.
No.
No, okay, so I want some honest truth, some like hardcore stories.
Yeah. I definitely felt lonely and doubtful, and at times was definitely regretting whether I think regretting the decision to come here and to leave home. I did tell myself like to at least give it enough time, and I knew that the pandemic was, again, like I think throughout the whole time there was always this expectation that it was kind of just around the corner, like, oh, things will be different very soon. And I knew that I'd moved here during a really difficult and kind of strange time. And I think I still had this hope that, oh, very soon, if I just kind of hang on, like it'll get better, right? And I'd heard stories of, what it's like living in Groningen or Amsterdam when, pre-pandemic, like just the most bustling, happening place, being in a big city, international place. And that was like why I'd moved here. So it was, while it was really difficult, I was still kind of holding on to this hope of seeing that, and was hoping that it was just around the corner. It would turn out it would take a lot longer, take months, longer than I expected. A big turning point for me was moving to Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. I moved from Groningen. Just decided I'd start there because I knew more people there. But moved to Amsterdam, and that was a big turning point for me, especially when things started opening up. You could actually go out and meet people and socialize and get to know the city, and that felt like I was like, okay, now I'm finally getting that what I imagined, what I kind of came here for, and getting a taste of what things are like outside of this super strange pandemic period.
You know what is strange is that even before pandemic, according to statistics, 1 people out of 10 in the Netherlands suffer from loneliness. And loneliness is a real pandemic. Like that sounds crazy, yeah? In the age of social media, where internet and we are more connected than ever, people feel lonely. What do you think about this? Did you ever experience it in your own life? And what would be the remedy?
I would agree with, it's even in a time where we're more connected than we ever have been before, right?
Absolutely.
You can call anyone, you can have access, you can communicate with anyone whenever, as quickly as possible, yet still we feel distant, sometimes distant from each other, from especially living far away from home. I still struggle with it, especially being in a different country, and I still sometimes feel lonely, right? Like being so far from home, being far from people that I have known since I was, just a boy, these childhood friends. Of course, I've made new friends here, and I have a great community here, but I still, it's still something I feel as well, being so far from home, and sometimes it's sad. When I moved to the Netherlands, my brother, I asked him, I'm like, how long do you think I'll be there for? And he said, I think you'll be there 5 years. And I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like so much time. That sounds like such a long time. And I thought, maybe I'll be there a year or two. I'll just see how it is. And I've just now passed 5 years of living in the Netherlands. And the thing that's kept me here and that makes it feel a bit more like home and helps with a lot of these feelings of like being far from home and again, loneliness is the people I've met here. And one thing that I love about Amsterdam and the Netherlands and the Randstad is how many talented, smart, interesting international people there are here. And so while I still feel today far from home and far from my family and far from these people that I grew up with, I still feel like I have people around me who I feel close with. And that feels very unique here, that there are so many interesting, smart, caring people who I feel like I'm growing with because I'm around them. I think that's what's kept me here for the past 5 years and helps me with feeling far from home.
So can I say, or can you say that you have actually built a community here of your own?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
People you can call a community or like a really close group of friends.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
In these 5 years.
Yes, absolutely.
That would be one of the remedies, definitely. I actually think that we lost sense of community. That's why we are so lonely. We are much more isolated than in the history of humanity. We used to live in communities, communes, tribes. Like we used to be much more interconnected and united, helping each other out. Families with kids would help each other out. I myself feel lonely, even though I have family with 4 kids, but still, like, it's you're still alone. You're still isolated with all this social media. For me, it's a dilemma, and it is absolutely true that so many people suffer, especially young people, younger generation, millennials, Generation Z, Zoomers, as we call them. They feel absolutely lonely. We are not going into that, but it's really an interesting. I know you're here alone without family. That's why I asked you. So for you, having friends and a group of friends and a sense of community is a remedy for loneliness.
Yeah, definitely. I'll say one thing that's helped me in the past years in finding some of that community is like when I mentioned that time where the pandemic was sort of ending and things were opening up, right? We had this lockdown after lockdown. And I remember when you could first go out and they started having events again. And I started going to all of these expat meetup groups. You had the meetup.com app. And every Friday they'd have like different social gatherings for expats. And you could tell, like, there were so many people that would go out desperate to meet other people, right? They hadn't socialized for a year, for a long time, right? And there were so many people who were interested in finding that connection with others. And it was largely expats, people who were far away from home and looking to make friends and getting to know people in this new country for a lot of them. And that's something that helped me meet some of my first friends here in the Netherlands, who are some of my best friends today. And I kept doing that, and I kept finding ways to explore interests of mine, like public speaking or different volunteering, that allowed me to meet more people around the city, around the Netherlands. And for me, it was really like going out, right? Just putting yourself out there in these places where you have the opportunity to meet other interesting people, and it just kept happening. And it really helped when I would find an activity or something I love doing. Like I love public speaking, and so I joined a club, Toastmasters, to help me meet people who also love that, who share that same interest. And that opened a whole nother
Let me put
community.
it that way. A lot of people who join Toastmasters are afraid of public speaking, but they would love to improve. When you say people love public speaking, I just remembered how I was freaking out. So we are from the same Toastmasters club, and many people come there to actually battle that fear of that stage fright, to actually have the guts to stand on that stage and share their message without fear.
Yeah.
But you are one of those who are very good at public speaking, for sure.
Yeah. Also shared fear at one point of public speaking. So
Yeah.
I think everyone shares an interest at getting better at it.
Yeah.
At being there to improve and learn from others. And that's a great way to meet others and build community, right? You're not just there. One, it's like social, but you're also working on something together, and you're helping each other, and you're being vulnerable. You're sharing stories about yourself, about your country, where you're from, your interest, and others come and give you feedback and help you improve. And I find that's a great way to build community. Not only just meeting other people, but finding this like shared interest. In Toastmasters, for example, it's a shared interest to improve, right? As a communicator, as a speaker, but that could be anything. You could find other, I don't know, volunteering opportunities that can help you meet people as well.
Absolutely. Since we went into this direction, yeah, I believe belonging is just a fundamental human need. We actually need to belong to a group, to a place, to a community. What is your personal definition of belonging? And where do you feel you belong? Or when do you feel you belong?
I wish I had a perfect answer to this, and it's still an answer I'm searching for. At times I feel like I'm still not sure, right? I'm living far from home. When I was in the US, I felt a calling to move here to the Netherlands to explore a different culture, different side of myself as well. I've also done a lot of travel and explored belonging, what that means to me when I have no home or when I'm moving constantly. Can I still feel a sense of belonging even when I'm not in my house or around friends or around family? And it's hard, even when I'm in the same place, even when I'm back home in Florida with my family, I still feel a calling for being here in Amsterdam around this very international, smart community, smart people who I'm surrounded with. While I'm here in the Netherlands, I feel also. So for me, I think it's a kind of fluid thing. It's a changing thing. I wouldn't say I have an exact answer to it, to what helps me feel belonging. For me, it's often people, the people around me. Do I have others who care for me and who I care for, who check in with me, who know what I'm working on, what I'm working towards, people who challenge me. So for me, it's a big aspect of it is people, right? Who do I have around me? I'd say one challenge and one thing that I've also explored is, right, as you're traveling, or does it have to be tied to a location or a place? I think belonging is also within you as well, how you feel about yourself, and can you feel happy and fulfilled as a person where you are. And for me, that often comes with learning, with growth, feeling like I'm growing, feeling like I'm learning more about myself. And if I'm working on something that I really care about, I often find belonging comes with that. So I'd say it's a mix of things. People, if I have something I'm passionate that I'm working on, and if I feel like I'm learning something new about myself and about others in the world, I often find belonging follows that.
That's a very cool answer, actually. It is a learning question, like how, when and where do we feel we belong, and do we belong, and what it actually means. I actually believe sometimes learning questions is more important than answers. You don't have to find an answer and have an answer for everything, because we are learning about things our entire life. Belonging is definitely one of them. So I loved your answer, actually. Since you mentioned that you have traveled and you felt that you still belong to a new, or maybe it broadened the sense of belonging, or deepened, or gave it a different shade or color, I don't know. 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, you have decided to go on a trip to South America.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what happens in life of a young man having a career, a life, a vibrant community in Amsterdam, and deciding, I'm going to quit all that, take sabbatical, and I'm going for a year. Did you travel a year?
Yes, yeah, it was 1 year.
Just tell us about this experience and what actually urged you to do that.
Yeah, so I was working in corporate before. When I moved to the Netherlands, I started working at a big tech company. And I had, a couple of years in, I was a part of a layoff at the company. Company slashed 15% of the company, big, over 1,000 people. And I was part of the layoff. And I had this idea when that layoff happened, maybe I'll go visit this good friend of mine who lives in Ecuador. I'd always had a dream of living and traveling for weeks or months in South America to learn Spanish and to get to know more of his country, Ecuador, where he's from. But then the company I was working at offered me a job to come back. They said, hey, actually we fired too many people. We need you back.
To rehire them.
We need to hire you back. We messed up. You got to come back.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll come back. But I had this idea in my mind, this dream of the trip. And I thought, okay, I'll go and work another year. I'll save up and I'll give it a bit more thought and planning to put this trip together. So I finished the job. I stuck to the plan, managed to wait out the year, and left on this trip for South America. And what had started as a plan for traveling for a month or two turned into a year-long trip. So I thought, okay, I'd really, if I'm going to do it, I might as well really do it. Let's see if I can travel the whole continent. And I left 2 years ago, almost on the day today. And I left with a backpack and a rough plan of where I would go. I'd start in the north in Colombia and hopefully go to the south in about 6 months, 7 months, and then go back up and then try to finish somewhere in Brazil by the end. When I arrived, I didn't speak any Spanish.
Zero.
I had
Okay.
Spanish classes in the US, but nothing stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And when I arrived in Colombia, I remember driving with a taxi driver and trying to my best just to say something about the city Bogota where I was. And it was like I just didn't have the words to say anything, and felt like, oh my gosh, I am in big trouble if I'm going to be in South America for a year and I can't speak any Spanish.
They don't speak English?
Very few people.
Okay.
Very few people. So I thought, okay, I need to learn Spanish. And so that became a big part of the year. Was like in the beginning, I took a lot of classes, and for me, it was part of the year. Like in the beginning, it was very much about like seeing the countries and I want to say like playing a bit of the tourist, right? You'd go, I'd take a bus, I'd see a city, I'd see all the sights, and kind of do that over and over. I covered Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, but after a certain point, after a couple months, I thought, okay, I feel like there's more. I want to experience these countries even more, even deeper, and so that began like volunteering and also things like couch surfing, where you basically stay with complete strangers, and these are often locals or people from the city where you're visiting who are interested in meeting other travelers or backpackers, and they host you for free. And you often share stories or maybe cook something for them, and you sleep on a couch, or I slept in hammocks, you name it. But you get this incredible experience of meeting people, families, locals from the place where you're visiting, and getting like a real experience, like getting to see a real, like below the surface of the country. And I would say that was...
The actual culture, the people, not the touristic part of it.
Yeah. So kind of breaking out of the hostels and sort of tourist experience within these countries, and that was a big turning point for me, and that also really helped with learning Spanish, where you're sometimes maybe it's the one person in the family speaks English, or maybe no one does, and you need to be able to communicate with them and ask questions and share something, and so that was a really good opportunity for me to practice and learn Spanish. And made a lot of really nice friends and connections during the year.
Sounds absolutely amazing. I envy you. I wish I could go for a year and travel in South America. What did you learn about yourself from this journey?
I feel like on this year of travel, I don't want to say the reason I left was to a part of it was self-exploration, right? To better understand, not only to see the world and to learn a new language and travel, but also to get to know myself better. And for me, that was doing something really challenging, which was traveling on my own, again, being away far from home, somewhere unfamiliar, relying on yourself to figure things out, sometimes really difficult things like getting really sick in another country. Like, I can't tell you how many times I got food poisoning, or, trickier, sometimes dangerous situations where you need to kind of see how you respond, right? And it's a really interesting way to get to know yourself, where you're not around people you know, you're not in a familiar environment, but you see if you can. Some of it's problem solving, but also how you relate and with the world around you. And for me, that was really an amazing experience, right? Getting to spend a lot of time by myself as well, but also seeing how I can relate with total strangers. Also learning a new language like Spanish. I also learned that you can express yourself in completely different ways through different languages. Like Spanish, I feel like I can be a bit more dramatic and expressive that I can't quite be in English or maybe Dutch.
That's true.
Yeah.
When you speak another language, you're a different person out of the sudden.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
That's fun?
I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
I'd say overall on this year of travel, it was And I think it goes back to this sense of belonging, right? I think before working in corporate and working in sales, a lot of it was sort of external validation, right? You were always, especially working in sales, right? You're always like, you have this number, or you're compared to others around you, how much you sell, how well you perform, are you moving up? And a lot of it was like external validation. And this trip and being like so much time by myself as well, and experiencing all of these new things, I think was very much for me like assuring that like, okay, I'm enough who I am, right? I don't need all of these external things or anything external. Like what I have within me is enough. And I think I definitely learned more of that and saw more of that during my trip.
Sounds like a personal pilgrimage of discovering your, I don't know, true sense of purpose. I don't know. It sounds like that. It sounds like an inner trip as well.
Mm-hmm.
So from outside you were traveling, but also from inside you were learning about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I would really like to hear something fun. I'm sure you had a lot of crazy, adventurous stories happening to you during the
Yes.
trip. So can you share like the craziest / funniest / most memorable whatever story that comes to your mind right now?
Yes. So I mentioned that throughout the trip I was kind of getting more and more advanced, right? At the beginning it was very like, all right, let's see all the sights. And then I thought, oh, let's do some couch surfing, stay with strangers. And then in the second half I thought, well, even the travel is getting a bit easy, right? You hop on a bus, you get to the next place, you know what time you're going to get there, you know how you're going to get there. It's all very planned. And I thought, okay, how can I slow down the travel? And at first I thought, oh, maybe I'll buy a bike, because I saw other people biking for months on just all of their things on a bike. And I ended up deciding, okay, let's see if we can hitchhike a big part of this trip. And I was in Patagonia, so I started in the southern tip of the continent on the Chilean side, and then plan was to get to Buenos Aires, so about halfway up Argentina. So big part of the continent, a couple thousand kilometers. I thought, ooh, I wonder if I can just hitchhike all of this. And I had a tent with me, and I had cooking gear, and so I had spoken to other backpackers and travelers about whether it was possible, and they thought, yeah, this is actually a good part of the continent to hitchhike. And so I spent a month and a half, almost 2 months, just hitchhiking. And some rides were fine, were normal people, school teacher, family, you have a conversation. I also had some interesting rides. One in particular, I was with a gaucho, which is a cowboy, and he didn't speak any English, right? I was speaking Spanish with him, and he had this old beat-up truck, and that just went so slow, and he was only able to take me like, I don't know, a couple of minutes. I thought he would take me very far, but he took me a couple of minutes and dropped me off at this police checkpoint. Between the provinces in Argentina, they have a police checkpoint. They'll stop the drivers, say, hey, where are you going? And he dropped me off at this point. He thought, oh, you'd get another ride here easily. And as soon as I stepped out of the car, a big police officer grabbed me by the arm, pulled me out of the car, and told me I would be a witness in a search of another car that was also stopped at the checkpoint, separate car. And apparently in Argentina, they have to have a witness when they search anyone. And within minutes, they found drugs in the car, and a lot of drugs. And here I was.
A lot of drugs, describe kilos.
Well, lots of different types of drugs.
Oh my God.
A lot of different types of drugs. And here I was, this shabby, I had a big beard at the time, long hair, right? Backpack. I'd been on the road, hitchhiking, and here I was as serving as the witness of this drug bust in the middle of nowhere in Patagonia. And it gets worse. They then take me into this back room and they have to strip search the guy. And all the while they're telling me, do not take your eyes off of him. You are the witness, you have to watch. And it took hours and hours and hours. And here I was, they had to weigh everything and I had to sign off. Yep, that's how much it weighed. And by the end I thought, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get to where I'm trying to go. But the police ended up finding my next ride. They stopped the cars in the middle of the road and asked who was going to Buenos Aires, which is where I was going that day, and ended up finding me a direct ride to Buenos Aires. So it worked out, but it was a pretty scary and unexpected experience. Part of this hitchhiking journey.
You wanted to go out of your comfort zone and push your limits. You had that.
Yeah.
You had experienced it.
That was it. That was definitely it.
That's definitely an unforgettable experience. Thank you for sharing. I have one more question, actually, and I think it's the last question. I don't know, probably once you went into adventures, you became more adventurous, but I also know that when you came back, you didn't go to your corporate job anymore, and you took a very bold decision to start your own business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been going for a year. How has it been so far for you?
So I had this idea of starting a business even before the trip, and had always had this sort of bug, I think, from an earlier mentor of mine who's an entrepreneur. And so even on my trip, I had the idea of, I wasn't sure what I'd do when I came back, but I did have some idea of that I'd maybe want to start a business. And toward the end of the trip, I thought, I've got all of this great energy, and travel is very much about problem solving, and I was traveling by myself, and it felt like very, very the type of energy and momentum that I would need starting my own business. And I thought, well, if not now, then when? Which was the same question I asked when deciding to go on my trip. I thought, if not now, then when? And so I thought, well, let's give it a go. I'll give it 6 months. I'll continue burning through my savings, because I'd already been traveling for a year, which not cheap, but I thought, okay, I'll give myself 6 months to explore, to see what I'd want to do, speak to people, and I spent most of those 6 months just networking, speaking to people who I used to work with in sales, and trying different things. Started giving workshops, and I started coaching some past colleagues as well. And at first, I thought it would go really quickly. I thought things would pick up and that it would be like a success within a couple of months. I think I was reading too much LinkedIn. I was too much on my feed on LinkedIn. A lot of people saying, oh, if you're not making 10,000 euros a month in your business, what are you doing? Right? And I thought, oh my gosh, how do I make money? Oh great, I'm having fun doing this, but also how do I make this a sustainable thing that I can do full time for the long run? And so I would say in the first year it's also been really tough. A lot of doubt, a lot of thoughts of quitting, going back to corporate. When I came back from the trip, I also got offered a job to go back to my corporate job again. And I said no to that because I thought, okay, I know, again, I have this feeling this is the right path that I'm on, to try something new, to bet on myself. but it's definitely been challenging. Mostly, I'd say 99% because of me, because of like internal doubt, and I think these these expectations you put on yourself to figure things out so quickly. But I'm a year in now and I've stuck with it. So if anything, I feel like that's already good progress. I'm still trying to figure out how to make this like
How to scale.
How to scale, it's very different than my corporate job where you get a paycheck, the same paycheck every month. It's not like that.
No guarantees, no security.
No.
You're on your own. As an entrepreneur for 9 years, I know.
Nobody tells you what to do.
I know the journey.
Yeah. I think that's been, especially no one, right? Corporate job or most jobs, you know what your job is. You have to do this, this, and this every day. Now I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do? What should I be doing, right? There's nobody there to tell you that. And so it's, you have to think a lot, but it's very, very fun. And I find I get very energized by the work. So I feel like that's a good sign that that it's bringing me more energy than it's taking. So I'm excited. And Amsterdam and the Netherlands have a very cool startup community. That's something I hadn't realized and hadn't really explored before starting this. But I've met a lot of great entrepreneurs and startups that have also helped me find direction and also find others to partner with and to learn from. I think that's been also a highlight, like a high point is being able to meet so many other, again, smart, talented people here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam.
The last question would be, if you could advise someone who is planning to relocate to the Netherlands, has a lot of doubts, overthinking this decision, what would be your advice to that person?
When I was trying to move here, I was really struggling to find a job, and I thought my plan was find a job and then I'll be able to move there. And my mom gave me the advice, or recommended, she encouraged me. She said, even if you don't find a job, you should still go there. Go there, try to like take the first step in moving there or making this sort of come true, and you'll figure it out. I know that's not possible for everyone. I know that's often moving countries is very difficult, expensive. Sometimes you need a job to maybe sponsor you to come here. But if it is just doubt about whether you should do it, I often feel like the hardest part is just taking that step, that sort of like plunge to come. And because I believe that once you do get here, once you're here, you'll sort of figure it out, and it's often not as bad as you imagine. So that would be my recommendation is to take the step.
Absolutely. Any journey starts with the first step towards your destination. I would give another recipe I've heard from you. If not now, then then. Then when?
Then when?
If not now, then when? That's how you act.
Yes.
If not now, then when? I better do it right now. And I already have a tradition, which started with my previous guest. Let's continue this tradition. I'm going to ask you it's a blitz. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You don't know the questions.
I'll get ready.
Give me the first answer that comes up. One thing you miss most of all from your home country?
Ooh, ocean, warm ocean.
Warm ocean, oh my God, I miss it too. One Dutch habit you have adapted?
aggressive biking. Being aggressive on the bike. I live in Amsterdam, so
I know.
when I've got somewhere to
I
go,
know the feeling.
I'm ringing the bell. That's me. That's how I practice my Dutch.
Cool. Aggressive biking. You have to put a slogan on aggressive biking in Amsterdam. One word or one sentence that would describe your journey in the Netherlands.
I'd say growth. Growth.
That's a cool word.
Growth.
And I want to start now another tradition. I hope that it will become, I can continue. I want to have some kind of continuation. So you can think of a question you would like to leave as legacy for the next episode, for the next guest who is coming to Belong Conversation. And you can, you can just speak it out. What would be that question for our next guest? From Kyle Campbell.
I would be curious to know from them, what's something from their country, their home country, that they've brought here to the Netherlands that they love or would like to share with others?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate the time. Thank you for coming here. I really enjoyed talking to you. Enjoyed your great stories. You are an amazing storyteller. And this is the end of our Belong Conversation, and I'm looking forward to our next guest and welcoming you in the next episode.